Today's guests lead a 23 years old performance marketing agency that over time manages growth for over 200 clients. They both joined the company as account managers, and when the original founders retired, they handed the keys to them. What makes this story interesting isn't just the journey from employees to CEO and COO. It's the culture they protected.
What is someone good at, or what does someone want to get better at? What do they want experience with? Where are they headed?
A culture with kindness and how they refuse to accept the burnout of typical agency life. So in this episode, we'll talk about the mindset shift from managing accounts to managing a company, how they use AI to protect work-life balance, and why running an agency is always better when you don't do it alone. Emma and Courtney, welcome to Agency Culture Conversations.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wesley. Happy to be here.
Awesome. Yeah. Love to have this episode. Super excited about it because I think we have such an interesting story. Would love to hear how your journey unfolds from being the account managers from the agency to now CEO and COO of the company. So Emma and Courtney, for everyone who's listening, can you, I'm not sure who you want to go first, but can you walk us through your entire journey from when you first joined the agency until now?
Sure. Yeah, we can go chronologically. So I joined in 2014 as an entry level. At the time, we actually had account associates before you became an account manager. So very early days learning how to do paid digital. My background was in math and a bunch of minors. I changed majors a bunch of times in college and just couldn't decide what I wanted to do, which turned out to be a pretty good fit for agency life because you get to work with a lot of different businesses and solve a lot of varied problems, especially the way we approach it, getting really in depth with our clients' businesses. So yeah, I joined thinking, like most people in our generation, okay, I'll work here for a couple of years and then I'll hop to somewhere else. And that's the way to maximize your income and your growth potential and all that. And I just kept finding new and interesting challenges at Working Planet. So eventually got promoted a couple times, started running an operations team as an account director. From there, I moved to a couple different positions. One was originating a new role at the company called a senior digital account specialist. New at the time, now very much a part of who we are. Where while I was in grad school for analytics, I was learning about using data effectively and telling good stories with data and all that. And we had a real need for upgrading our reporting as a company. So I started in this new role where I was responsible for helping to build out our dashboards and upgrade how we view performance and talk about performance with our clients, while continuing with managing a couple of clients myself. And that kind of set the trajectory for me for, my career at Working Planet for the next few years. So I became director of data applications, became then VP of data and strategy, and then eventually came back from the behind the scenes roles to become CEO in June of 2024.
That's awesome. Courtney, what about you? When did you come into the picture and where did you meet Emma?
Yeah, so I had similar but different path, I guess. But I came in 2017. I had tried out a couple different, similar to Emma, a couple different roles in different ways. Was not in marketing at the time. But I had gone to business school and had a focus in retention marketing. Marketing was something I always found interesting, but I had previously thought it's more of a creative type of job. And that's not really me. My dad was a high school math teacher. I was very math focused and just more comfortable there and found that interesting. And so I had actually gone to take a course, in data analytics and was this is fascinating. I think this is so interesting. This is where, how can I mesh that with the marketing side of things? And so I had started looking at roles after finishing that course and found Working Planet in 2017, joined as an account manager, actually on Emma's team. So Emma was my account director when I first joined. And I was very focused at that point of okay, I had changed, my career path a couple times ahead of that. And I felt I don't know, I knew I wanted to move into management. And so when I came into Working Planet, I was like, I know I don't have experience in marketing. I know that like I'm ready to learn. I want to move my way up. And one of the things that drew me to Working Planet was that, you know, the owners were like, this is advancement is merit based. Like, we're going to be open and honest with you of what you need to do. And if you really want this, then like, we'll help you get there. But like, it's on you to really like push your own learning and your own advancement. And so I took that very seriously. And had moved my way up as well, similar to Emma's path of like, ended up running my own team at one point. And then beyond that, as the owners were thinking about their retirement and what the future of the company was, had started to talk to me about, became the director of operations, moved up at the same time as Emma into the VP role. And then in June, at the same time as Emma moved into the CEO role, I moved into COO.
That's amazing. I have a lot of questions about you and Emma's working relationship in a short while, but Emma, I actually want to start off the conversation with you. I'm curious, what was one of the hardest mindset shifts you had when you moved from an IC level to now managing a company? So if I understand correctly, you started as an account associate in 2014 and
Correct.
now moving your way all the way up to CEO. Right. So when you're an IC, your focus was just on your own work and your clients' work. But now when you're stepping into the C-suite position, when you're the CEO, what was the biggest mental hurdle that you had to overcome to lead the entire organization?
I think it's very similar to what the hurdle was at every step, taking a step further and further back from being hands-on with things. And honestly, being CEO is the most hands-off role of, hopefully, I think that means of doing it right. But yeah, we get very in the weeds with our clients, with their data. In my roles especially, I was doing a lot of like, yeah, let me just get in here and figure this out. I have always liked tutoring. I was a math tutor in college, like that. I love helping people see things in different ways and helping them understand things. But I haven't always been the best communicator about how I solve problems and trying to teach people things more about an analytical process rather than understanding concepts or understanding here's a step-by-step process that's already really codified. And so the trying to let go a little bit, trying to figure out what are the right guardrails, what's the right information to put in the hands of the people doing the work that, you know, I'm letting go of. You guys do this now because I have a different job now. And just giving them space to do that. That was hard at every stage. I would say going from a senior account manager to account director is probably where that felt most painful. Like, especially those are my clients. Like I was owning those relationships and now I'm handing it off to somebody else. And I'll say it got less and less painful with each transition and less difficult with each transition. And now we're in this beautiful spot where I legitimately feel like everybody on our team is better at their jobs than I ever was at the jobs that they're doing. And so it's just a lot easier now to like, I know you guys got this. I can just kind of share, hey, here's what I'm seeing. 9 times out of 10, they're pointing out to me, well, here's what you haven't seen or what you don't understand. Let me give you some additional information. And like, cool, turns out you guys got it. And then once in a while they say, oh, that's a really good point. Thanks for sharing that with us. And you know, that's actionable. We'll take that and run with it. But yeah, I think having those transitions ahead of time was absolutely necessary preparation for that final transition to CEO.
Yeah, you know, it's actually very interesting because one of the things that founders and CEO or even the executive or manager level struggle with the most is delegation. Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, what is your process or what is your delegation system that if you have to delegate a task to somebody, how do you delegate correctly and ensuring that they could be success at the task that you want them to do?
Honestly, I go to Courtney because her superpower and one of her passions is like, I mean, she can speak to this, but she's so good at understanding and finding the overlap of what is someone good at, or what does someone want to get better at? What do they want experience with? Where are they headed? So that she can find not just where's the right place for this task to go, but also like where are those overlapping interests where we can feed two birds with one scone on this, if you will, so that we accomplish our goal and someone else benefits in a way. So Courtney, I don't know if you want to talk more about that.
Yeah. Like Emma said, it's something that I find joy in my career and always have, like, regardless of what role I've been in. Like, I just think it's fun to connect people with, like, if they're trying to learn something in particular and an opportunity comes up, it's like, ooh, I know the person for that. Like, they're going to be excited because they want to learn this skill or whatever. Or it's something of like, I know this person's really good at this and we need to just like delegate it and have it taken care of and not have to worry about it. And so that piece, I think, just comes somewhat naturally to me just because I enjoy it, like in personal life and in work life. But I think that takes a lot of like, you have to know your people. You have to talk to them regularly. Like, that doesn't just like come out of thin air. Like, you have to have those conversations about what people are interested in and what they're trying to achieve, what they're working towards. But also with delegation, I think you have to be really clear about your expectations if you have them. Sometimes we're like delegating things and we're like, you know what? We've been avoiding doing this thing because we like don't really have a vision for it. Can you just like run with it? And they come up with the coolest things. Like, that's always really fun. But sometimes it's like, we don't have the bandwidth to do this, but I have a very specific vision. So let me tell you, like, here's what I'm thinking. I need it by this time, or I want to check in with you at this time. And so I think that's a big piece of delegating.
No, absolutely. Have you ever run into a situation, on that delegation topic, have you ever run into a situation where you delegate a task to somebody that on paper, they might be very good at it, but they're not enjoying doing that task, right? It's kind of like when you're a CEO or COO, we put ourselves in a situation where you have to be good at everything, but you don't enjoy doing everything, right? So I'm curious, how would you handle that if that was to happen to your teammate?
So meaning like, if I were to delegate a task to someone and they're like secretly like, this, I despise doing this kind of work.
Yeah. Even though I'm amazing at it, I just hate doing it.
Oh, interesting. That's interesting. I think we do encounter that from time to time. I do think that our team is like pretty curious and they like to solve puzzles. Like, that just tends to be the type of people that we hire. So like, most of the time, if there's something that it's like, hey, we need to figure out how to do this, or, you know, we're doing, like, I think giving the context of why often like eradicates some of that. Like, well, like, if you don't feel like you have the purpose behind it or it feels important, then like, I don't enjoy it. This seems like a waste of time. Like, that tends to feed into that feeling. But there's definitely things that they'll share. And I think the big part is like that they'll tell you that you've, again, like built those relationships, that they'll share that with you. It doesn't mean you're never going to have to do that type of work, or you're not going to get something like that delegated, but at least you have an idea of like, well, maybe someone else, you know, everyone's different. Maybe someone else in the company does love doing that kind of thing. So maybe we try to steer some of that type of work to that person. Or why do you dislike it? Let's figure out like, what piece of this are you missing? Or I think context is, you know, it does eradicate a lot of that like feeling around it, because our team wants to do something that matters. So if they know why it matters, they usually are fine with doing the work.
Yeah. Yeah. We've had multiple conversations I can think of with team members where we open the door to, for me, this would feel a little bit tedious. I'm curious if you're feeling that way, you know, and try to get that feedback from them. And sometimes it's, you know, no, this doesn't feel tedious, or like, yeah, it feels tedious, but I get why this will move this number this way, and I care about that. So it's fine. Like, yeah, it's not my favorite thing, but I get why I'm doing it. And, you know, some of that might have to do with just the team that we have of like truly amazing unicorn geniuses. But yeah, I think a lot of it also has to do with not just handing something down and like, here, do this, I need this by this date, but let me give you the full picture of what I'm trying to achieve with this, and here's my approach. And also being open to like, yeah, I have a full vision for this, but if there's something else that feels more authentic to you or that makes more sense, please jump in and tell me, because the goal is never to like win the argument or have the glory. It's to get the best possible outcome. And so if we're all working towards that together, then we can have open conversations along the way about how we get there.
Yeah, yeah. And you know what? Speaking of relationships, Emma, I'm actually curious about something. So when you transition from being an IC to an executive level, do you think people in the team back then view you differently? Like perhaps somebody who maybe joined the team earlier than you did, and they might have some question like, why did I not get that position? Why did Emma get it? Do you feel like there was some tension around the office, or what does that look like for you?
I don't think there was like tension or animosity or jealousy around like, why did she get that and I didn't? And Courtney can maybe correct me if I'm wrong because I
No,
moved
I
into
agree.
that first director role. Okay. But I do think one of the biggest challenges at that point was clearly communicating, okay, so now what does this mean for me? Not in terms of like, when do I get to move up, but like, okay, now you're specializing in that area and we have somebody in that role. So where other team members used to sort of infill, oh, okay, so am I not supposed to be weighing in on this stuff now? Because now Emma's in that role. And so that took a while to figure out and actually codify that. And we're small, move quickly. Things may not have been documented to the extent that might have been helpful for folks before, like, we just got to make this change and we gotta move forward. And so I think it was more about like, again, clarity of mission and communicating. So how does my day to day change with this role than it was confusion or consternation around me advancing. I felt very supported um, and it, like celebrated of, people being excited about that transition for me and for the company, I think.
Yeah. So what was different from your day to day, Emma, going from an IC level, having teammates, co-workers, and now you are the boss, right? So what are some of the things that you have to change throughout your day to day to make sure that the transition happens smoothly?
Um, I don't know that there was much of a, so I went from being on an operations team to running an operations team. And then really the big transition was from running an operations team to the director role and that executive role. From that point on, I didn't really feel like a boss. It didn't feel like now I'm in charge of people or people have to listen to me in a different way. If anything, it felt more like, okay, I have to move these things forward and I have to make the compelling case to my coworkers why they should be focusing on this or why, I need their help with this. Here's the case for why you should work on that and why you should help me move this forward. And so that was an expectation explicitly set by the founders also was, and not because they had some hard and fast rule about it, but because I think they understood people are going to respond better to like, hey, here's the picture of success. Can you help me with that? I painted this for you, but can you help me get there? Than they will with, well, I have the biggest title in the room, so you have to listen to what I say. Like, the closest I've ever come to that is one of the worst moments of my career. And it was when we had an account director who was leaving. She had gotten another job. And so she and I disagreed on how to approach a specific data problem. And at the time, it was essentially like, you're about to not be here. So your opinion on this, while helpful and valid, like, you're not going to be here to help support that vision through. I will, and I don't really see your vision. So we're going to go with my vision. And it still is like, ugh, like that was 6 years ago now or something. And I still like, I just hate that feeling still where it was like, we didn't get to um, either a disagree and commit moment or some sort of a compromise. It was fully like, this is my job. And so we're going to do it the way that I'm saying, even though you still disagree with me. But otherwise, I think it's, if you have the right people and you listen to them, it's not a matter of being the boss in a sense of giving direction. Or when you said boss, the thing that came to mind was like giving orders or saying, this is what needs to happen, as opposed to sharing the vision. Hey guys, here's what I'm focused on. Here's why that's important. Here's what I need from you. What questions do you have about that? Like, is there anything that you disagree with in terms of what I shared? Is there anything you think I'm missing? And it being a collaborative thing where like Courtney and I, without our team, we don't have a job. They are the ones doing the stuff and like driving our success. Our co-founders always talked about our org chart as a sort of inverted pyramid. Instead of it, you climb up to the top, it's you move your way down and you're supporting everybody above you. And I feel that more and more with each transition. Like I've never felt more like just a supportive cheerleader than I do now as CEO.
Yeah. You know what? I have a interesting follow-up that I want to ask you. So you mentioned that the founders encouraged you to think of like an upside down pyramid. And prior to the conversation, we did have a chance to get to know each other. And it seems like you're very passionate about the work-life balance topic. I'm curious, as a CEO, does it ever feel like the world's on your shoulder, the entire team's on your shoulder? Do you have to carry on this way? And like, how does that, I guess, like affect your your personal life?
Yes, it does. But so some context, I became CEO 2 months after my first child was born. And so it was a big year for me. Whew, mom, CEO, it all happened sort of at once. And so there was this necessity, like, I'm not going to sacrifice my child's childhood, like being a mom for this job. And luckily, Courtney and I were partners, and she and I, it was like our main agreement we made going into this was we're going to try some stuff. We're going to try to figure all this out. We're going to, see what we can do, but it's not going to come at the expense of our lives. Like there is no point in doing a job that doesn't let you have the life that you want. And that's, potentially a really privileged thing to say, but that was sort of our mission. And then that expanded to the rest of the team as well and became kind of our behind the scenes mission for the company. Yes, we do profit-driven paid digital management and we help our clients grow their business, but that's sort of our vehicle to giving ourselves and our team the keys that, to the lives that we all want. And so that really factors into our decision-making with everything is like, okay, well, we're thinking about making this change. How is that going to impact our team? And, what are things we can do to help protect our team members' goals? And we hire a lot of very high achieving people with really high standards for themselves. So sometimes that involves intervening and trying to protect them from themselves. And Courtney and I do it with each other too. Like we've just worked together so long and we have come to recognize each other's red flags or burnout signals or whatever. And just like, hey, bud, how's it going? When's the last time you went outside and felt the sun? And like, oh, okay. Yeah, maybe I need to take a little break. And so, it's not really a question at this point or something that I feel like I grapple with a ton. We're in client services, so it ebbs and flows. There are days and weeks and months that feel really hectic. And then there are days and weeks and months where it's like, oh, man, the dust has really settled and this is kind of chill. And so my priority is often making sure I have enough gas left in the tank at any given point that if something blows up, if suddenly I'm needed somewhere, it isn't like, well, I'm already running on empty, guys. I can't really help you. Like we all need to have some reserves, and that comes from having a more balanced life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I would even add to that, like, because what we do is there isn't like, okay, it's, there's this problem, we solve it this way. It's like we are constantly creative problem solving, like trying to figure things out, working through different challenges that have surfaced, or maybe it's the same problem, but the solution that worked last time for a different client in a similar situation isn't working now. And so because we're in constant like strategy and problem solving mode, I feel like you have to have that space and that rest to like even be creative. If you're running on fumes, like you are not going to come up with a creative solution because you're just like, I don't know, just solve this, like we just want to be done with it. Whereas like, I think I learned that very early on, like even as an account manager of like, things do come up unexpectedly. And so like to Emma's point of like, you have to make sure that you're constantly protecting yourself a little bit, but really it's like, yeah, I want to enjoy my life. Career is part of it, and that brings me joy. There are plenty of other things as well. And I'm very aware of that for our staff too. And like, they should enjoy that. But also I recognize that like that allows them to show up and be better at their job too. So like those both feed each other.
Yeah, it's awesome. Thank you for sharing that. Courtney, I actually want to ask you a little bit about your experience as well, because a lot of our listeners might be first time transitioning into the leadership role, or maybe new entrepreneurs, right? So as you are transitioning from like an IC level to now a leader, COO of your company, what was that like for you? And do you have any tips, suggestions for all the listeners who perhaps may be going through the same journey as you are?
Number one tip, find yourself an Emma. Makes it a lot easier. No, but I think like it was really challenging. I definitely dealt with like imposter syndrome throughout my journey to COO. And that's, I think everyone experiences that to some degree, and that looks different, or you refer to that differently. It was helpful to have Emma along the way to be able to like be open with and talk to and kind of vent to and experience some of that with, so that you felt a little bit less isolated. But I think a big part of like, I struggled a lot at like director and VP role, just like when I became head of a team, I think I was very like, this is what I've been working towards, and like very intentional and very focused on like, this is the kind of manager I wanted to be. And then I think when it progressed from there, I sort of lost myself a little bit. And as I moved into the COO role, was like, okay, let's get back to what I used to enjoy about management side of things, and like, what was it? And I think that's where I really like refound like, be me, like be open, be vulnerable. Like, what are the things that I value? Because I think oftentimes like there's so much information out there on like how to lead people, how to manage. And like, it is helpful. It is insightful. But at the end of the day, like I am not a good actor. So if I'm trying to be someone I am not, like, it's going to come off phony. It's not going to be received well. You're not going to be able to build like true relationships with people. And I think that for me, that's so core to managing well, is like, I want to be close to the people that I am working with every day. And when I was managing a single team, I was able to do that. I talked to them more regularly. I talked to them every single day, like was on client calls with them and all of that. And I think I struggled for a little bit on how to do that a little bit more removed. But I think my advice is to just be able to like be yourself, be vulnerable, own your mistakes. Like that's a huge one. You're going to make a lot of them, and that's okay. I think again, like going back to provide the context of why you're doing something, and own that like, this is what I'm trying to do. I want to try this. Can you give it a shot with me? And if it doesn't go as intended, like let's regroup and like pivot. And you have to follow through on that. Like you can't say that and not follow up on it. But I think that that's been my main path forward to like managing, is like people know that I'm going to throw out things to try, but they also know that I'm going to hear them out if they're like, I don't think that did what you intended. Or like, I think if we did it this way, it would be even better. And like, all right, cool, let's try that. Like I'm open to that. I don't think I have all the answers.
It's awesome. I'm actually curious. Do you guys keep like a note somewhere, or like your anniversary day where you and Emma first met, or when you guys first stepped into the role together, and you guys celebrate that day, or is there something like that?
No, but like I didn't know at that point, and candidly, Courtney joined my team at such an interesting point for me, because I was in grad school and managing at that point a full team. We like built a team up from scratch. So my most senior member had just reached his 1 year anniversary when Courtney joined us. And then he gave his notice. So I had a team of like fairly new account managers, a full client load. I was working on my master's degree, and that was a breaking point for me, honestly. Like I went to the owners and I was like, I either need a different role here or I need to leave because I can't do this anymore. So this weird like, here's Courtney, like my future partner in crime. And I was like, I can't take this. I can't take another new person. This is too much. So yeah, it doesn't really stand out in my mind as like a glorious day. It's kind of a tough day, but a big part of the journey. And then our relationship, like honestly, more so than her joining my team, I think back fondly on like the years that we spent each managing teams, and our old office building had 2 floors, and she and I had the 2 teams downstairs, and it's like an open office, an open floor plan. And so she and I sat near each other, and I remember us like being the last ones downstairs kind of frequently. And what would have been like, oh, we're here 20 minutes after everybody else leaves was like, we're here an hour and a half later because we're just sitting here catching up about what's going on and, you know, venting or joking or, you know, just supporting each other through. Like very quickly, Courtney moved to being like a trusted and valued peer. So, yeah, weirdly, her joining didn't feel like a big celebration at the moment, even though it turns out to have been a huge day in my life.
Yeah. I've heard a fair share amount of co-founders working relationship that doesn't work out. And I'm actually very happy that you guys are a few exceptions actually made it through this far. So I'm curious from your point, from your perspective, if you have to give maybe 2 or 3 things or even advices for people who are looking for co-founders out there, or having a co-founder, or even having a CEO, COO relationship in the organization, what would you say are the top 2 or 3 things that make it work for you and Emma, or you and Courtney, or you and Emma, if Courtney, you want to jump in as well?
I think like initially what came to mind when you just asked that is like finding someone that's strengths balance your weaknesses. We just balance each other out so well. There's things that I'm really good at that Emma's like, I can't stand that. Can you take this on, and like vice versa. Like I'll be like, I am really freaked out by this thing, but you're very good at it. So like, can you help me with this, And so I think that balances us out really well. So not finding someone that's just going to like, oh, they're just like me, so we'll get along really well and we'll agree on everything. Like that's not the path. It's like find someone who actually is very different than you, because there's a lot of strength in that.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. To the point, like when Courtney says there are things that she enjoys and is good at that I don't, like I often feel guilty. It took a long time for me to get comfortable coming to her with those things because I was like, I hate this so much. The last thing I want to do is put this on your plate. And she would say, I like doing this. Stop it. Like, just, give me those things that I enjoy that. And it feels like, like we're a 4-legged creature instead of 2 individual people. Like, I know that most of the times when I feel really stressed and overwhelmed or feeling really negative about things, when I tell Courtney that, she's like, oh, I actually feel pretty good about this. Like there are just so many different ways that we balance each other out. I would say another thing is one of the things I liked about Courtney really early on, and I think we liked about each other, is we had this work-life balance interest also in our personal relationships. So like, some people, especially, at an agency, there's a lot of young people who are coming to work there and they're looking for, their new best friend. They're looking for, their new romantic partner. I don't know. I don't know what people are looking for, but Courtney and I were not looking for that. And it was very like, this is great. I have so much love and affection for Courtney. And also we're not at each other's houses every weekend. It's like, this is cool. I respect you so much. You're way high up on my list of people who I care about, and we know each other really well personally. We talk about our personal lives a lot. You know, we're very bonded, but also we're both very comfortable having a certain boundary where like I don't like that messiness where my personal life and my professional life is super intertwined. And so if I need to make a hard decision professionally, it feels like it impacts my personal life. And oh, well, now we have friends of friends who are all in the, and it's like we're both really bad at acting and just have very little interest in drama. And it felt like such a nice, clean sort of relationship where we could both like, yeah, love you. I won't talk to you all weekend. Goodbye. And then go home. So yeah, maybe try that because that's working really well for us.
That's awesome. I want to talk about a topic of divided responsibilities, but because I think you were onto something there. A lot of the time, people don't want to step into each other's toe, right? So between you both, what area do you typically focus on as a CEO and a COO so that you can have that divide and conquer separation?
Yeah, that's always a work in progress. I think we've tried at different times to like, let's define this. Let's put a structure around this thing. And there are those things that fit very cleanly. Like I am almost always the person who's focused on like sales and outreach and pricing, writing proposals to new clients and things like that. But also I ask for Courtney's help on some of that. Like, hey, I need some other perspective on these things. Courtney is almost always the person who's handling the company, who's handling the team and like making sure whether it's mapping out how we address where a new client goes on the team, how we address someone, with an advancement path in mind, how we map things out. I feel like I generally am thinking more about like, what do we do? And Courtney is a little more focused on like, how are we going to make that happen? But yeah, we've tried at different times. Like it's just always an ongoing experiment. I think at the moment we've hit a pretty good balance, but we usually go through cycles where, we try something for a few months and then we reconnect and we're like, ooh, turns out like something surfaced. There was some crack in this system. And so what do we do about that? So actually a few months ago, we went from sharing all of our prioritization with each other to like, you know what? I don't need to recount to you those same things every week. Let's just meet. We'll talk about sort of the big picture of what are our goals for this quarter? What does that look like? Who's going to be responsible for those next steps? And then like, okay, we're off on our way. Otherwise, it's sort of handling the day-to-day things that come up. But Courtney, I don't know if you have other thoughts. I've really minimized I was trying to figure out like, how do I summarize what Courtney does? Because I feel like literally I do sales and just kind of like hang out and have fun. And then Courtney makes sure that like the wheels stay on the
and this is the clear point where Emma's like, I don't like doing that stuff. So that's fun.
Yep. Ew, logistics. I hate it.
And I think like actually this question and the previous one, like another thing that I would add to just like our dynamic is you have to be able to communicate. You have to be able to stop and like, we very frequently will be like, hey, this feels weird. Can we talk about this? Like, I don't know if I'm stepping on your toes or like, should I be taking this and running with it? Did you want to do this together? Like, do you want to talk about it before I start? So I think just being really open and honest and sharing like, I don't know, this feels weird and I'm not entirely sure why. And then like being able to talk through it. And then like, it's usually a very quick conversation. It's just like, oh, okay, cool. Now we can just like keep doing our thing. But having those moments of just like, let's come together, make sure we're on the same page. And then like, all right, cool. Let's run with it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a priority for both. Like each other's perspectives and feelings about a situation are a priority to each other. So if something feels off, we just have enough trust in each other and respect for each other to like, oh, that's worth talking about. Like, let's put things on hold, find time, make sure that we're considering that carefully because either there's something there's some misunderstanding, and like, that's for me, usually like first priority, we need to fix that, because if Courtney and I are not on the same page, it's going to feel weird all day. So like, that's usually a let's drop everything and reconnect. Or I feel that way, and Courtney's like, it's not a fire. We can talk. You have other more important things to deal with. We'll talk about this later or whatever. But yeah, 100% like make sure that you can talk about you're with someone where you trust their gut, and then you're responsive when they say my gut is saying something right now.
Yeah, you know what? That actually is a good transition to my next question for you, because I'm sure throughout years of working together, there has to be some disagreements between you two. So
Don't think
how
so.
do you handle how do you handle disagreements behind closed door? And if you can walk us through maybe like a story that you don't mind sharing, I would love to hear how you guys handle internal conflicts.
I can't really think of like a specific example. I don't know if you can, Emma.
No, and I think there are two types of conflicts, and it's interesting you specified like behind closed doors, because some of them we don't handle behind closed doors, and some of them it's like we're talking in front of the team and one of us says something and then the other one says, actually, wait, maybe we're not aligned on that. And sometimes we like talk it out right there in front of everybody. It's like, I don't know. We don't want to have like a parent-child dynamic of actually mom and mom need to talk about this before we can. We're going to share the context with everybody anyways, as long as it doesn't have like HR implications or, there are certain types of things where we just know it can sort of like create unnecessary angst for people if we share the wrong information. So that's more the concern, where then it's like, wait, this needs to be behind closed doors. So like occasionally, and I'm always afraid of doing that. I have a constant fear of like putting my foot in my mouth or oversharing. I think that Courtney tends to be more strategic in what she shares. I don't know if your listeners will get that sense from this, but I like to chat about stuff. And so often when we're in meetings, I'll start saying something and then like, wait, Courtney, am I allowed to, is this a good time, you think, to share this? And she'll like, yeah, what are you talking about? But once in a while, she's like, no, don't talk about that. And I'm like, right, okay, sorry, everybody. We'll, I promise we'll follow up. We'll let you know. And I think the critical thing is working really, really hard to build trust with your team so that they understand you're not doing that to be cagey with them. You're not doing that to like hide anything, that you want to be as open as possible, but you don't want to create that undue angst. So I do remember something recently that had to do with like an IT transition that I really wanted to tell the team about, because it's something that they've been asking for. I remember asking for this as an account manager 12 years ago. Like, it's something that we've wanted to transition for a very, very long time to a different system. And Courtney has been working really hard to, vet some different options and make that transition possible. And so she, brought up to the team like, yep, we're looking into that. And I was like, whoa. We are not looking into that. Like, Courtney's putting a lot of time and effort and energy, and like, here's the progress. Like, I knew people would be excited about that. And I felt like Courtney was underselling it just because she was being humble, but she was concerned about like, I don't know that this is going to work. So I don't want to get everybody's hopes up. I don't want, but that was sort of a live conflict disagreement moment that had to do with like, we have these very complex webs about how people might be feeling about things in our heads. And still don't know. I don't feel strongly that like either one of us was correct in that moment. It's usually, I would say the vast majority of things Courtney and I do agree on. And when we disagree, we're very comfortable when we're in discussion saying like, that's not how I see that. And so it doesn't feel like we have frequent conflict, because I don't feel like my heart rate rising. I don't get riled up. It feels like a sort of an intellectual discussion where the disagreement is something we're both looking at that's on the table between us, and like, oh, weird, from over here it looks like this, and like, oh, well, what I'm seeing is this, and we can kind of pick it up and look at it together and figure out what's actually happening and what do we want to do about that. Which I think is, the marriage of our personalities, but also the years of mutual respect for each other, knowing like, I know that we're on the same page. So this is just something where like, you know something I don't, I know something you don't. And if it really comes down to it, usually one of us feels more strongly than the other about something when it gets to like, this is just a matter of opinion. And usually one of us like, that's your strong suit. So yeah, let's go with that. And I'll back you up or, but yeah, I don't know that there's ever been a time where Courtney and I had a conflict where I felt like my blood boiling or.
No. And I think that like, if we really were at like a stalemate of like, nope, we both feel really strongly about this, I think we would just like, how do we get more information then? Like if we clearly are missing something if we can't get to an agreement. So I think it would be more of that. Like, how do we either get more feedback from staff or get more data for the client or whatever the case is before we continue this conversation?
Yeah, I love that. Honestly, I think you guys are very kind to each other. And that kind of made me very curious about how you take that approach to your internal team as well. So what are some of the core values? What are some of the non-negotiable when it comes to team culture things for your internal team that you want to make sure everybody follows in the internal team?
I think a big one is that everyone is kind to each other, honestly. Like, we don't allow people, like, we debate. We want people to come with different ideas to discuss different opportunities, and like we work in teams so that no one is managing a client by themselves, because we think we get better outcomes for our clients when people are debating really good ideas. And so
and it's more fun, honestly.
And it's more fun, yeah. But with that, like, you have to have a level of psychological safety for people to feel comfortable enough to do that. And so like people have to be kind. They have to know like this person cares about me and they're not doing this to like win or for their own ego, or like it's genuinely like we're all in this together and we're going to be kind to each other and we're going to debate ideas, and there isn't any kind of like ego, I guess is really the best way to put it. Like there's no ego with it, and they just want the best things. I think something that helps with that is we do open book management. And so we go over our numbers as a company every single week with our full staff. And I think that's like a basis for our staff to be like, oh, I see how all of us working together is impacting how we're doing as a company. And so I think that as a foundation piece, like really gets us all like, we're in this together. And if we can come up with the best ideas, we move the numbers, we all benefit from that, and we continue to grow and be able to do cool things.
Yeah, you know what? That's an interesting question for you, because I think you encourage everyone to be kind. And I think a lot of people want to be kind, but it's always the outside factor that pushes them to go the opposite direction. And I think in the agency world, specifically, I'm talking about clients, right? So I'm sure you come across clients being jerks, clients have, unnecessary or unreasonable demands. So how do you protect your team in those situations? How do you essentially empower your team to maintain that kindness, right? While setting like a firm boundaries with your clients?
Yeah. I think it's important to distinguish kindness from niceness. So we expect, it's not really something we state. We don't really say, everybody be kind. Like, it's just how we select people. And a lot of how that looks with clients is not with, oh, it's so nice to see you. You're so smart. You're so pretty. Like, that's not the thing. It's, we care about the outcomes you care about. We care about them more than we care about being right, or we care about us making money. Like, we want to do what's right for you and your business and your team. So Courtney and I are very clear on, we won't tolerate our team being disrespected. Or Courtney, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, I think, our team knows that there is no amount of money in the world that would allow us to be like, just take that from a client, like that is not what's important. To us, we do value our staff, and we would never put them in a situation where they're uncomfortable, where they're disrespected, where they're treated poorly. And they know that. We talk about that very openly. I think we are particular about who we take on as a client for that reason as well. If we early on in a sales conversation get a feeling for like, I don't think this is going to be a good match personality wise or whatever, culture wise, then like we won't move forward if at the fear of it impacting our staff. Again, it's not worth it. Like, but I think our focus on outcomes, like Emma was saying, is really what is core to being able to like shift that conversation. So like if a client were to come to us and they're like, I need this by this date, and which honestly doesn't happen that often. And if it does, like we all support each other. And it's like, if this really genuinely has to happen, don't take that on solo. Like tell the rest of us, we're all going to jump in. We're going to make it happen and we're going to help you. But if it does, if you feel like it genuinely doesn't need to happen, you always can fall back on the like, here's the goal we're trying to achieve. Does that ask get us closer to that? And I feel like 9 times out of 10, the client's like, no, like that is an anchor to every conversation we're having. So it's like, it doesn't feel like we get a lot of unreasonable things because we're so focused on like, here's the growth that you're trying to achieve. And we're going to focus on spending all of our time on that. Like, how do we achieve that thing? How do we get you more customers? How do we make you more money? And everything else is like, okay, maybe nice to have or interesting or whatever. But for the most part, our clients are pretty good about like, if there's a random ask, they're like, hey, I have this internal meeting coming up and I know I'm going to, be asked these questions. I know this isn't the most important thing, but any chance you could help me? And we're like, yeah, of course. Like that goes more to the relationship side of things of just like, yeah, we want to be your support system and all of that. So I don't feel like we often run into that situation where clients are being unreasonable or rude or anything like that. And if that were to come up, Emma and I would 100% step in.
Yeah.
Interesting.
There have been times where it's felt borderline and we have talked with the team members involved. And usually they're like, no, it's okay. And we're like, are you sure? Because we'll get in there. Like, but yeah, we feel incredibly protective of our team and grateful for our team. And we're both agreed, like, even our biggest client isn't worth losing one of our team members over. Like I would rather lose our biggest client than lose any of our team members because we can build back, that's fine, but the team that we have is just absolutely amazing.
I actually really like that mindset. And you know what? I got a chance to do a bit of digging on your team member as well. And one thing that came up was very interesting is a lot of them have backgrounds in math, economics, and engineering. And I think you yourself as well had a background in data engineering. So what is the thought process behind bringing on all of these STEM majors into your company as a marketing agency?
I was a math tutor in college. And there's something about people who were traumatized by math in 3rd grade where like they just never get over it. They remain afraid of numbers for the rest of their lives. And there are very few people who have been traumatized by marketing in 3rd grade. So it's a lot easier to like bring people in who have a scientific approach to problem solving, who are comfortable with numbers, and then train them on marketing stuff than it is to bring in people with a marketing background who are terrified of math. And what we do is very mathematical, and that's always been in our DNA. We were founded by a couple of data scientists. Like they were, I don't know, programming in-flight refueling for the Air Force and mapping forest stuff in Egypt, which forests in Egypt, I didn't know. But, just a couple of really bright nerds who saw PPC marketing becoming a thing. And they were like, hey, I bet we could do scientific stuff with that to help businesses make more money doing that. And so, it's just always been who we are. And we've found a lot of less good fit team members come in expecting my background in marketing is going to be sufficient here, not realizing like, oh, but even the mention of fractions and I'm quivering, like I can't handle it.
Ah,
I'm so sorry about this.
and no worries. I'll make sure to ship out a pack of cough drops for you afterwards. So, thank you. And you know what? I think you guys have such like you guys cares about your team a lot. And there is one conversation that has been going around, and I hope you can see where I'm going with this, which is AI. What are your thoughts about AI? Are you worried that AI at some point is going to replace your team? Because if you look around, right, all the organizations are doing lays off because AI is more efficient. One person can now do a job of 10. So yeah, what do you think about where AI is going and how would that affect job security in the future, not just within your agency, but just agency in general?
Yeah, I think that we're looking at AI a little bit different than that. Like, yes, we're looking at it to leverage what our team's capable of doing, but not in a way we're not looking to replace them. We're looking to amplify what they're doing. And so we have a pretty senior team right now, and we want to increase our capacity to be able to take on more clients. And so, like, what are some of the things that AI could take on that is repetitive or they're doing manually or is easy enough that like, okay, can it do this simple task and then have our senior team members review it or input the strategy around it? Like, I think AI is really powerful and it has a lot of potential to make us a different agency, but not in the like, let's replace our whole staff, because I think it can't think for itself. Like it can take information and do really cool things with it, but it still needs someone to drive that strategy, to drive the ideas behind it. And that's where like our senior staff comes in. Like in an ideal world, I would love to have them do less of the just like manual work or like piecing together that strategy. Like they come up with a strategy and then they get to review almost as if they had like their own little team or intern or whatever, like piecing together some submissions or things like that, or ad copy or whatever it may be. But I think AI is a hype word. It does get a lot of attention right now. There is a lot of really cool potential that we've explored some, but we still have a lot to explore and to learn about. But we've seen like AI has been a part of ad networks, for example, for a very long time prior to really the hype around this. So like our team is uniquely positioned to like, we've been working with AI for a while and we can see how quickly it can turn poorly given the wrong inputs. And so like, there still has to be someone smart that understands what it's doing, what it's trying to achieve, like steering the ship. And so like, that's what we're working towards. Because like really everything that we're doing within like the ad networks is like, how do you feed the algorithms really good data so that we can drive good outcomes for our clients? And it's like, that's the same for any other approach with AI that we're taking. So that's, I don't know, Emma, if you have something else to add to that.
I'll try.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the thing that has always made us different in our market is all the stuff that is still the same. So we've never been like, wow, they're really known for their ad copywriting, or like, man, they're really known for their creative concepts. Like, we can handle it. It's fine. What we're known for is strategy, effective media pricing, and really driving actual profitable growth for businesses. And so all of that and like using the tools that are available to do that, that's exactly the same with AI. Yeah, I have no interest in reducing our team. In fact, we want to continue growing our team. And AI just gives us the ability to like focus on the parts of our job that are more interesting and fun, which helps make this a better long-term prospect for our team members to stick around for longer because they can continue to focus on new challenges and higher level thinking and all that. So yeah, I think as both a business and as an employer, I'm not really shaking in my boots beyond the sort of ripple effects of the hype itself. I think practically, not really concerned. I think a lot of people are viewing AI as like, oh, okay, so we just like won't need people to do these things. And that's where there may be a little bit of a pendulum swing of people putting a lot of faith in AI to just figure it out. And then, hey, why didn't this work? Why didn't this make me money? And like, all right, we'll be here. But yeah, we do still need like just the degree to which our strategy can change for a given client over the course of weeks, months, years of working with that client. Like that's not an AI thing. And even the tools that automate making campaign changes or budget changes or will pause things that don't perform at a certain level. I think some people find that really exciting. To us, if we had a team member who was managing campaigns using that kind of logic, we would manage them out of the company. Like that's not effective management and that's not a recipe for growth. So it's more of a messaging and positioning concern than it is an actual practical concern.
Yeah. Thank you so much for sharing that thought. And unfortunately, we are getting to the end. And of course, before we let you go, I always love to ask our guests one closing question. So, Emma and Courtney, from your perspective, if you, let's say, have to rebuild an agency from scratch again, what is the one single mistake that you would refuse to repeat again?
I don't know that I have one.
Yeah. No, I don't have one either. And listeners, Wesley told us he was going to ask us this question. So it's not just because we're like on the spot. Like we put some thought into this and literally can't think of a single thing because it feels like every misstep, every mistake along the way, we learned something from it. And that's part of who we are today. So it doesn't feel like, I will never do that again. It feels like, oh, thank goodness we already did that so that we don't have to do that again. And without having those mistakes in the past, we would be, and knowing what they were, we would probably be doomed to repeat them. So yeah, nothing comes to mind.
Yeah, nothing comes to mind, not because there hasn't been mistakes.
Yeah.
There definitely has, but I agree. There isn't anything that I'm like, that scarred me for life and I would make sure I'd never do that again. It's like, yeah, but we learned a lot and we pivoted and continued on. So, yeah, there's nothing there that I feel that strongly about. Like I would never want to repeat.
Everyone, this is your guests, Emma and Courtney, and this is the Agency Culture Conversations. Thank you both for being on the show.
Thank you.
Thanks, Wesley.